The November rain hammered against the grimy windows of the Riverside Diner, creating rivers of neon light that streaked down the glass. Inside, the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting a harsh glow over the worn linoleum floor and cracked vinyl booths. The smell of burnt coffee, grease, and desperation hung thick in the air, a combination Emily Carter had become intimately familiar with over the past 18 months. "Order up. Emily, table 6 is waiting." Frank's gravelly voice cut through the din of clattering dishes and overlapping conversations. Emily grabbed the steaming plates from the kitchen window, her hands moving on autopilot despite the tremor of exhaustion that had settled into her bones. 22 years old, and she felt ancient. Her blonde hair, pulled back into a messy ponytail, had lost its shine weeks ago. Dark circles shadowed her green eyes that once sparkled with dreams of finishing college, of becoming something more than a perpetually exhausted waitress in a Manhattan diner. "Coming, Frank," she called back, her voice hoarse from lack of sleep. Table 6. A family of 4, parents arguing in hushed tones while their children threw sugar packets at each other. Emily plastered on her customer service smile, the one that didn't quite reach her eyes anymore, and approached. "2 burgers, 1 Caesar salad, and chicken fingers for the little man," she announced, distributing plates with practiced efficiency. The father barely glanced at her. "About time. We've been waiting 20 minutes. Emily bit back the response burning on her tongue. Try working 3 double shifts in a row with 4 hours of sleep total. Instead, she nodded. "I apologize for the wait. Can I get you anything else?" "No, please. No, thank you." Just a dismissive wave. She turned away, her vision swimming slightly. The diner tilted, then righted itself. Emily gripped the edge of a nearby table, steadying herself. Not now. She couldn't afford to be weak now. Rent was due in 3 days, and she was still $340 short. Her phone bill was overdue. Her student loans had gone into collections. The collection agencies called every day, their voices mechanical and merciless. "Emily, table 12 needs refills." Marcus, the other server on shift, rushed past carrying a tray loaded with desserts. She grabbed the coffee pot, its heat seeping through the thin handle into her palm. Table 12, a couple on a date, leaning close over their barely touched meals, whispering and laughing. Emily remembered when she used to believe in romance like that, before exhaustion became her most consistent relationship. The Friday night crowd showed no signs of thinning. Every booth was packed, every stool at the counter occupied. The kitchen was backed up, tickets printing in an endless stream. Frank was cursing behind the grill. The dishwasher had broken down again, leaving Marcus and Emily to hand-wash dishes between serving tables. Emily's feet screamed in her worn sneakers. She'd developed blisters on her heels 3 days ago that had burst, and were now raw wounds she couldn't afford to tend properly. Each step sent sharp needles of pain up her legs. Her lower back ached from the constant movement, lifting trays, bending to clear tables, reaching for supplies. Miss. A man at table 4 snapped his fingers at her. She turned, still smiling that hollow smile. "Yes, sir? This coffee is cold. I ordered it 10 minutes ago." 10 minutes ago, she'd been in the kitchen helping Marcus because they were short-staffed. 10 minutes ago, she'd been holding back tears because her landlord had called threatening eviction. 10 minutes ago, she'd been wondering how her life had spiraled so completely out of control. "I'll get you a fresh cup right away, sir." Back to the coffee station. Pour, serve, smile, repeat. The pattern that had become her entire existence. The diner's front door chimed, and Emily glanced up reflexively. 3 men in expensive dark suits entered, shaking rain from their shoulders. They moved with a particular kind of confidence, the kind that came from power, from knowing everyone in the room would step aside for them. The diner went quieter, not silent, but subdued. Conversations dropped in volume. Even Frank stopped cursing in the kitchen. The man in the center was tall, perhaps 6'2", with dark hair perfectly styled despite the rain. His suit probably cost more than Emily made in 6 months. Sharp jawline, dark eyes that swept the room with calculated assessment, and an air of danger that was almost tangible. He couldn't have been older than his early 30s, but he carried himself with the authority of someone who'd seen and survived things most people couldn't imagine. Emily didn't know who he was, but she knew what he was. You didn't work in Manhattan for this long without recognizing the type. Money, power, and the kind of reputation that made smart people keep their distance. Frank appeared at her elbow, his face pale. "That's Adrian Blackwood," he whispered, his usual gruffness replaced by something uncomfortably close to fear. Be polite. Be quick. Don't make eye contact. Adrian Blackwood. Even Emily, who barely had time to watch the news anymore, had heard that name. Whispers in the break room. Newspapers left behind by customers. The man who controlled half of Manhattan's underground operations. The man who made problems disappear. The man you didn't cross unless you had a death wish. He chose a booth in the corner, the one that offered a view of both the entrance and the kitchen. Strategic. His two companions flanked him, their eyes constantly scanning the diner like Secret Service agents. "Emily," Frank hissed. "You're taking that table." Her stomach dropped. "Frank, Now." She grabbed menus with trembling hands. This was the last thing she needed tonight. Her head was pounding, her vision occasionally blurring at the edges. She felt hollowed out, running on fumes and anxiety. But bills didn't pay themselves, and Frank wouldn't tolerate any hesitation. Emily approached the booth, her practiced smile firmly in place despite the warning bells ringing in her head. Up close, Adrian Blackwood was even more intimidating. His dark eyes, almost black in the diner's lighting, fixed on her with an intensity that made her feel exposed, as if he could see through every defense she'd built. "Good evening, gentlemen. Welcome to Riverside Diner." Her voice came out steadier than she felt. "Can I start you off with something to drink?" One of the companions, a broad-shouldered man with a scar above his eyebrow, ordered a black coffee. The other, leaner but equally dangerous-looking, requested water. Adrian Blackwood studied the menu for a moment, then looked directly at her. "Coffee, black, and the turkey club, no tomatoes." "Of course. I'll have those right out for you." Emily scribbled the orders, acutely aware of his gaze following her movements. "You look tired," he said suddenly. Emily's pen paused. Customers sometimes made personal comments, usually crude, sometimes pitying, but there was something different in his tone. Not judgment, almost concern. "Long shift," she replied diplomatically, "but I'm fine, thank you." His expression didn't change, but something flickered in those dark eyes. "How long?" "I'm sorry? How long have you been working today?" It was an odd question, particularly from someone like him. Emily felt the weight of his companion's stares. "Since 6 this morning, sir, but that's not unusual in this business. It's 9:30 at night." "Yes, sir." She straightened, uncomfortable with the attention. "I'll get your orders in right away." She turned before he could ask anything else, her heart pounding harder than it should. There was something unsettling about Adrian Blackwood's attention. Not threatening exactly, but intense. Penetrating. Like he saw the exhaustion she tried so hard to hide from everyone, including herself. The next hour blurred into mechanical movement. Serve, clear, wipe down tables, refill drinks, process payments. Her body moved while her mind drifted in and out of focus. She brought Adrian Blackwood's table their orders, refilled their coffees, and carefully avoided direct eye contact, but she could feel him watching her, even as he conducted quiet conversations with his companions, even as he ate his sandwich with precise, controlled movements. His attention periodically returned to her. It should have frightened her more than it did. Maybe she was too tired for proper fear. Around 10:30, her vision started swimming more persistently. The edges of her sight grew fuzzy and the floor seemed to tilt beneath her feet. Emily leaned against the counter, taking deep breaths. Just 2 more hours. Her shift ended at midnight. She could make it 2 more hours. "Emily, you okay?" Marcus touched her shoulder, genuine concern in his brown eyes. "Fine," she lied. "Just need some water." She drank from a glass with shaking hands. The cold helped, but not enough. Her body was sending clear signals. Stop, rest, you've pushed too far. But stopping meant losing this job. Losing this job meant eviction. Eviction meant she couldn't even think that far. Table 9 needed their check. Table 3 wanted dessert menus. Table 15's kids had spilled an entire milkshake. Emily moved through it all, each task requiring more concentration than the last. She was clearing table 7 when it happened. One moment Emily was stacking plates, calculating the tip, wondering if it would be enough to buy groceries this week. The next, the world tilted violently sideways. The plates slipped from her hands. She heard them shatter, a distant sound like glass breaking underwater. Her legs went boneless. The floor rushed up to meet her. Darkness, voices, muffled at first, then clearer. Called an ambulance. Give her space. Been on her feet for 16 hours. Emily's consciousness surfaced slowly, painfully. Her head throbbed. Her body felt like lead. But there was something else. Something warm and solid supporting her. The scent of expensive cologne, subtle and masculine. The feeling of fabric that cost more than her monthly rent against her cheek. She forced her eyes open. The first thing she saw was a dark suit jacket. The second was a strong jawline. The third was Adrian Blackwood's face, closer than any dangerous man's face should ever be, looking down at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Emily was half reclined against him in the booth, his arm supporting her shoulders. His companion stood nearby, creating a barrier between them and the gawking crowd. Frank hovered behind them, wringing his hands and looking terrified. "Easy," Adrian said quietly. His voice was deeper up close, with a slight rasp that suggested too many late nights and hard decisions. "Don't try to move too quickly." Reality crashed back. She'd fainted, in the middle of her shift, in front of everyone, and she'd somehow ended up in Adrian Blackwood's booth, practically cradled against him. Emily tried to pull away, panic flooding her system. "I'm so sorry, I need to—" "You need to stay still." His grip tightened slightly, keeping her from bolting. Not restraining, but firm. "You collapsed. Hit your head on the way down." She reached up, feeling a tender spot on her temple. Her fingers came away clean. No blood, at least. "The ambulance is on its way," Frank said, his voice higher than normal. "Emily, Jesus Christ, you scared the hell out of everyone." "I can't afford an ambulance," Emily heard herself say. The words came out automatically. The truth she'd been avoiding for months, finally spoken aloud. "I can't afford the emergency room. I can't—" She stopped, horrified at herself. Here she was, having broken down in front of Manhattan's most dangerous crime boss, and she was babbling about medical bills. "Cancel the ambulance," Adrian said, still looking at Emily. Frank blinked. "What?" "But Mr. Blackwood, Cancel it." Adrian's tone didn't rise, but the command in it was absolute. "Marcus, get her some orange juice and something with sugar. Frank, bring her coat and any personal items from the back." They moved immediately without question. Emily realized with a strange detachment that people didn't argue with Adrian Blackwood. They simply obeyed. "I'm fine." Emily tried again, though her voice trembled. "Really, I just need a minute, and I can finish my shift." Adrian's expression shifted slightly. Was that amusement? "You just collapsed from exhaustion. You're not finishing anything tonight." "But I need—" "When was the last time you ate a proper meal?" he interrupted. Emily's mind went blank. Yesterday? The day before? She'd been living on coffee, the occasional dinner roll from the diner, and whatever day-old pastries Frank let the staff take home. Her silence was answer enough. Marcus returned with orange juice and a slice of pie. Adrian took them, holding the juice to Emily's lips. Drink. She should have refused. Should have insisted on standing, on returning to work, on maintaining some semblance of control. But her body betrayed her, desperately craving the sugar and liquid. Emily drank, the cold sweetness coating her throat. "Good," Adrian murmured. "Now eat." The pie was lemon meringue, her favorite. She took the fork with trembling hands and managed a few bites before Adrian's companion, the one with the scar, spoke. "Boss, we need to move. The meeting can wait." Adrian didn't look away from Emily. "Victor, bring the car around. Lorenzo, clear a path to the door. Mr. Blackwood, I appreciate your help, but I'm fine now," Emily said, trying to inject some firmness into her tone. "I just need to go home." "Where's home?" She hesitated. Giving her address to a Mafia boss seemed like a monumentally bad idea, but his eyes held hers, patient and unyielding, and she found herself answering. "The Bronx, Hunts Point." Something flickered across his face. Recognition, maybe. That neighborhood's reputation was almost as bad as his. "You planned to take the subway alone after midnight after collapsing from exhaustion." It wasn't a question. Emily's cheeks burned. "I always take the subway." "Not tonight." Adrian stood smoothly, taking her with him. Emily's legs wobbled, and he steadied her with an arm around her waist. "Tonight you're accepting a ride home and a decent meal. That's non-negotiable." "I can't. You don't have to." "I know I don't have to." He guided her toward the door, his companions flanking them. The entire diner watched in stunned silence. "But I'm going to anyway. Consider it payment for the entertainment." "Entertainment?" A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "You're the first person in 5 years who's looked me in the eye and tried to argue with me." Frank appeared with her coat, a threadbare jacket that had seen better days, and her purse. He looked at Emily with something between pity and fear. "Take care of yourself, kid. And Emily, take tomorrow off. Paid." She wanted to argue, But Adrian was already moving her toward the door. The November rain had intensified, turning the street into a river of reflected light. A black SUV waited at the curb, so clean it looked out of place in this neighborhood. Victor held the door open. Emily hesitated at the threshold. This was insane, getting into a car with Adrian Blackwood, accepting help from someone whose reputation was built on violence and power. Every rational instinct screamed at her to refuse, but she was so tired, so desperately, bone-achingly tired. And something in Adrian's expression, not pity, not lust, but something else, something almost like recognition, made her feel less alone than she had in months. "One ride home," she heard herself say. "That's all." "One ride home," Adrian agreed, though something in his tone suggested he was making no such promise. Emily climbed into the SUV, Adrian sliding in beside her. The interior smelled of leather and that same subtle cologne. Lorenzo took the driver's seat, Victor the passenger side. The doors closed with expensive, solid clicks. As the SUV pulled away from the Riverside Diner, Emily caught her reflection in the window, pale, exhausted, vulnerable, and beside her, Adrian Blackwood's profile, sharp and controlled, his dark eyes reflecting the city lights. She had no idea that this ride would change everything. That accepting help from Manhattan's most dangerous man would pull her into a world she couldn't begin to understand. That the exhaustion that had brought her to her knees tonight was nothing compared to the storm she'd just walked into. All Emily knew, as her eyes grew heavy and her body finally surrendered to its need for rest, was that for the first time in months, someone had caught her when she fell. Even if that someone was the last person she should ever trust. Emily woke to silence. Not the usual symphony of her cramped Bronx studio. No sirens wailing through thin walls. No neighbors arguing in Spanish through the ventilation system. No radiator clanking and hissing like a dying animal. Just silence. Pure, expensive silence that felt almost oppressive in its completeness. Her eyes opened slowly, adjusting to soft morning light filtering through what appeared to be floor-to-ceiling windows. The ceiling above her was high, pristine white, with recessed lighting that wasn't buzzing or flickering. The bed beneath her was obscenely comfortable, a mattress that probably cost more than her entire year's rent, with sheets that felt like liquid silk against her skin. This wasn't her apartment. Emily sat up abruptly, and the movement sent a dull ache through her temple. She touched the spot where she'd hit her head, finding a small bandage she didn't remember receiving. She was still wearing her work clothes, the black pants and white button-down shirt required by the diner, now wrinkled and smelling faintly of grease and coffee. Memories flooded back in fragments. The collapse, Adrian Blackwood's face looking down at her, the SUV ride through rain-slicked streets. She remembered fighting to stay conscious, remembered Adrian's deep voice telling her to rest, remembered the terrifying comfort of finally surrendering to exhaustion. But she didn't remember arriving here, wherever here was. Emily swung her legs off the bed, a king-sized monstrosity that could fit 4 of her studio apartments inside it, and stood on unsteady feet. The room was enormous, decorated in shades of cream and gray with minimalist furniture that screamed wealth. Abstract art hung on the walls, the kind that cost hundreds of thousands at galleries she'd never be able to afford entering. Through the window, she could see Manhattan spread out below like a glittering kingdom. Her heart rate kicked up. She was high, very high. 20th floor? 30th? A soft knock interrupted her rising panic. "Miss Carter?" A woman's voice, professional and warm. "May I come in?" Emily's throat felt like sandpaper. "Yes?" The door opened to reveal a woman in her 50s, impeccably dressed in a navy pantsuit, her silver hair styled in an elegant bob. She carried a tray with what smelled like fresh coffee and warm pastries. "Good morning. I'm Margaret, Mr. Blackwood's house manager." She set the tray on a bedside table, moving with practiced efficiency. "He asked me to check on you when you woke. How are you feeling?" Where am I?" "Mr. Blackwood's penthouse, Central Park West." Margaret poured coffee into a delicate china cup. "You fell asleep in the car last night. Mr. Blackwood felt it was safer to bring you here than to your apartment given your condition." Emily's mind reeled. Adrian Blackwood's penthouse. She'd spent the night in a Mafia boss's home. "I need to leave. My job, I have a shift this afternoon. Mr. Blackwood spoke with your employer. You've been given the weekend off, paid." Margaret offered the coffee cup. "Please drink. You were severely dehydrated last night." The coffee smelled like heaven, Rich, dark, nothing like the burnt sludge at the diner. Emily took it with trembling hands, the warmth seeping into her palms. He can't just... I didn't ask him to. Mr. Blackwood rarely asks permission to help people. Margaret's expression softened slightly. There are fresh clothes in the closet, all in your size. The bathroom is through that door. Take your time. When you're ready, he'd like to speak with you. He's in his office. She left before Emily could formulate another protest. Emily stood alone in the opulent bedroom, coffee cup in hand, trying to process the surreal situation she'd found herself in. This was insane. She should call the police. Except what would she say? That Manhattan's most powerful crime boss had rescued her from collapsing at work, brought her to his penthouse, and offered her coffee? She drank. The coffee was perfect, smooth, strong, exactly what her body craved. The pastries on the tray were still warm. Croissants, pain au chocolat, fresh fruit, real food, not day-old dinner rolls or stolen crackers from the diner's supply closet. Emily ate mechanically, her mind racing. She needed to get out of here, needed to return to her life as chaotic and exhausting as it was. Being here in this place, accepting help from Adrian Blackwood, it felt dangerous in ways she couldn't fully articulate. But God, the bed had been comfortable, and the coffee was incredible. And for the first time in months, she'd slept without nightmares about eviction notices and collection agency calls. Emily forced herself to stand. The bathroom Margaret had mentioned was through a door that looked like part of the wall. Smooth, expensive, designed to disappear. She opened it and nearly gasped. The bathroom was larger than her entire studio apartment. Marble everywhere. Floors, walls, countertops. All in shades of white and gray that caught and reflected light like some kind of ethereal cave. A rain shower that could fit 6 people. A bathtub that looked more like a small swimming pool. Heated floors that warmed her feet through her worn socks. A set of clothes was laid out on the counter. Dark jeans that looked expensive. A soft cashmere sweater in deep green. And undergarments still in their packaging from brands she recognized from magazine advertisements. All exactly her size, as Margaret had said. How did he know her size? Emily showered quickly, trying not to think about the implications. The water pressure was perfect, the temperature divine. She used the provided toiletries, products that probably cost more per ounce than she made per hour, and dried off with towels so soft they felt like clouds. The clothes fit perfectly. Of course they did. She found her reflection in the mirror and barely recognized herself. Clean, rested, wearing clothes that didn't smell like grease. The dark circles under her eyes were still there, but less pronounced. The pallor of her skin had improved. She looked almost human again. Emily braided her damp hair and took a deep breath. Time to face whatever came next. The bedroom door opened into a hallway that belonged in an architecture magazine. High ceilings, hardwood floors that gleamed, more abstract art on cream-colored walls. She followed the sound of voices. Her new shoes, also provided, also perfect, silent on the expensive flooring. The hallway opened into a massive living space. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of Central Park, the trees below still clinging to the last of their autumn leaves. The furniture was modern and minimal, all clean lines and neutral colors. Everything spoke of money, taste, and power. Adrian Blackwood stood by the windows, phone to his ear, speaking in low tones. He'd changed from last night's suit into dark slacks and a charcoal sweater that did nothing to diminish his commanding presence. Even in casual clothes, he radiated authority. He noticed her immediately, his dark eyes locking onto hers. He said something brief into the phone and ended the call. "Emily, good morning." His voice was as she remembered, deep, controlled, with that slight rasp. "I trust you slept well, Mr. Blackwood." "Adrian." He gestured to a seating area near the windows. "Please, sit." Emily remained standing, her arms crossed defensively. "I appreciate what you did last night, but I need to go home. It's too much. I can't accept." "Can't accept what? A safe place to sleep? A meal? Basic medical attention?" Adrian moved toward her, his movements controlled and precise. "You collapsed from exhaustion, Emily. Your body shut down because you've been running on empty for God knows how long. That's not your concern. I'm making it my concern." He stopped a few feet away, close enough that she had to tilt her head to meet his eyes. "When was the last time you had a full night's sleep?" Emily's jaw tightened. "That's none of your business. Answer the question." There was steel in his voice now, the tone of someone accustomed to being obeyed. Emily felt her defenses rising. that stubborn core that had kept her surviving through months of hell. 3 weeks ago, maybe 4, she lifted her chin. I work double shifts 6 days a week. I'm trying to finish my degree online. I'm behind on rent. My student loans are in collections and I have exactly $47 in my bank account. Sleep is a luxury I can't afford, so thank you for your concern, but I need to get back to my life. Something flickered in Adrian's expression. Respect, maybe. And how long do you think you can maintain that pace before you collapse again? Next time might be in front of a subway train or in traffic. The words hit harder than Emily wanted to admit. She'd had the same thought herself in her darkest moments. I don't have a choice. There are always choices. Adrian moved past her toward the open kitchen, all stainless steel and marble, pristine and clearly designed by someone who never actually cooked. I'm having breakfast. You're welcome to join me or you can continue being stubborn and leave. But if you leave, you're taking the security detail I'm assigning you. Emily blinked. Excuse me? You think I don't know what Hunts Point is like? You think I haven't heard the statistics about that neighborhood? Adrian pulled out containers from the refrigerator. Fresh fruit, yogurt, artisan bread. A young woman, alone, living in one of the most dangerous areas of the city, working until midnight and taking the subway home. That's not survival, Emily. That's a countdown to tragedy. I've been fined for 18 months. You've been lucky for 18 months. He turned to face her, his expression serious. Luck runs out. And after last night, after being seen with me, your luck just got significantly worse. The words sent a chill down Emily's spine. What do you mean? Adrian set the containers on the counter, his movements deliberate. My enemies are always looking for leverage, weaknesses. People I care about, or people they think I care about, become targets. You were seen leaving the diner with me. That makes you a person of interest. But I'm nobody. I'm just a waitress you helped. They don't know that. All they know is that Adrian Blackwood stopped his evening, canceled a meeting, and personally escorted some girl home. His dark eyes held hers. By now, half the city's criminal organizations have your name, your address, and your work schedule. Emily felt the blood drain from her face. You're trying to scare me. I'm trying to make you understand reality. Adrian moved around the counter, coming to stand in front of her again. I helped you last night because you needed help. But that action has consequences. Consequences I'm prepared to manage, but only if you let me. By assigning me a security detail? By controlling my life? Emily's voice rose despite herself. I've spent the last 2 years fighting to be independent, to not rely on anyone. I'm not going to give that up because some criminals might be interested in me. Your independence means nothing if you're dead. The blunt words hung in the air between them. Emily wanted to argue, to insist he was being dramatic, but the look in his eyes, deadly serious, with an edge of something that might have been genuine concern, made her pause. Why do you care? She asked quietly. You don't know me. We met 12 hours ago. Why does any of this matter to you? Adrian was silent for a long moment, studying her face with that intense gaze that made her feel transparent. When he spoke, his voice was softer than before. Because you reminded me of something I'd forgotten. He turned back to the kitchen, resuming his preparation of breakfast. Sit down, Emily. Eat something. Then we'll discuss your options. What options? The ones that keep you alive while maintaining some semblance of the life you're trying to build. He glanced back at her. I'm not a charity, and I'm not trying to control you. But I also don't leave problems unsolved. You're a problem now, whether you like it or not. The question is whether you're going to be practical about it or stubbornly suicidal. Emily wanted to storm out, wanted to tell this dangerous, arrogant man exactly what he could do with his options and his security details. But beneath the anger was fear, cold, rational fear that he might be right. She thought about her studio apartment with its broken lock, the dark walk from the subway station, the men who loitered on her street corner, their eyes following her every night. She'd told herself she was being paranoid, that she was safe enough, but that was before Adrian Blackwood had made her visible. Slowly, Emily moved to the bar stool at the kitchen counter and sat down. What kind of options? The corner of Adrian's mouth twitched. Not quite a smile, but close. Practical ones. He set a plate in front of her. Perfectly arranged fruit, yogurt with granola, toast with what looked like homemade jam. Coffee appeared in a fresh cup, steam rising in delicate curls. Option 1. You go back to your life exactly as it was, and I assign you a security detail. 2 men, rotating shifts, keeping distance but staying close enough to intervene if necessary. You'll barely notice them unless you need them. Emily picked at the fruit. And what do they report back to you? My every movement? Only security concerns. Where you go is your business. Whether you're safe is mine. That sounds like surveillance. That sounds like survival. Adrian leaned against the counter, coffee cup in hand. Option 2. You stay here temporarily. A few weeks, maybe a month. Let the interest die down. I have several guest rooms. You'd have complete privacy, access to everything you need. Margaret runs the household and can accommodate any reasonable request. Stay here, in your penthouse, with you. Emily looked around the expensive space. That's insane. Is it? You need rest? You need security. Both are available here. And what would you want in return? The question came out sharper than she intended, but Emily needed to know. Men like Adrian Blackwood didn't offer help without expecting something back. His expression darkened slightly. I don't operate that way, Emily. If I wanted you in my bed, I'd tell you directly. This isn't a transaction. It's problem solving. Heat rushed to her cheeks. I didn't mean, yes you did, and I don't blame you for the assumption. He set down his coffee cup. My reputation isn't built on kindness, but it's not built on preying on vulnerable women either. You're here because I'm not in the habit of leaving messes behind, and your collapse happened in my presence. That makes it my responsibility to ensure you survive the aftermath. Emily stared at him, trying to read the truth behind his words. Everything about Adrian Blackwood screamed danger. From his reputation to his bearing to the subtle violence she sensed coiled beneath his controlled exterior. But there was something else too, something in the way he'd caught her when she fell. The way he'd made sure she was safe before dealing with his own business. What's option 3? She asked. There isn't one. Adrian's tone left no room for argument. Those are your choices. Make one, or I'll make it for you. The presumption should have infuriated her. Instead, Emily felt a strange sort of relief. For months, she'd been making impossible choices. Which bill to pay, which meal to skip, how many hours she could work before her body gave out. Having someone else narrow the options, take some of the burden of decision, felt almost like a gift, even if that someone was a mafia boss. If I stay, temporarily, I need to be able to work. I can't afford to lose my job. You won't. I'll arrange transportation to and from the diner, secure transportation. And my apartment, my things? I'll have them packed and brought here. Your rent will be paid through the end of your lease in case you decide to return. Emily's head spun. You can't just pay my rent. I can. I will. Consider it a security deposit on your cooperation. Adrian straightened, towering over her. Do we have an agreement? She should say no. Should walk out of this penthouse and back into her messy, difficult, barely sustainable life. Accepting help from Adrian Blackwood was crossing a line she couldn't uncross. It was entering a world she'd spent her whole life trying to avoid. But God, she was so tired, and the bed had been so comfortable. And the thought of sleeping without fear, eating without rationing, existing without the constant pressure of imminent catastrophe, it was more tempting than anything had been in years. 2 weeks, Emily heard herself say. I'll stay for 2 weeks. Then we reassess. Adrian extended his hand, formal and businesslike. 2 weeks. Emily shook it, his grip firm and warm. The moment their hands touched, she felt something shift, an acknowledgement, a connection, a point of no return. She'd just made a deal with the devil. She only hoped the price wouldn't be her soul. The rest of the morning passed in a surreal blur. Margaret showed Emily the guest room that would be hers, smaller than the master but still 3 times the size of her studio, with an ensuite bathroom and a view of Central Park that took her breath away. A laptop appeared, high-end, and already set up with her school access. Her textbooks arrived by messenger within an hour.
How did you get my university login? Emily asked when Margaret delivered the laptop. The older woman smiled enigmatically. Mr. Blackwood is very thorough. By noon, Emily's belongings from her apartment had been delivered, packed neatly into boxes by people she'd never met, transported by men in dark suits who called Adrian boss and treated Emily with cautious respect. Her entire life, fitting into 8 cardboard boxes. Adrian was gone for most of the day. Business, Margaret said vaguely.
Emily didn't ask for details. She spent the afternoon trying to do coursework but mostly staring out the window at the city below, wondering what the hell she'd gotten herself into. Around 5, she heard the front door open. Voices, Adrian's and another man's, speaking in rapid Italian. She caught words here and there, enough to understand they were discussing someone named Dimitri and a situation at the docks. Emily stayed in her room, giving them privacy, but she couldn't help noticing how Adrian's voice changed when he was conducting business. Colder, sharper, with an edge that reminded her exactly who and what he was. A knock on her doorframe. Adrian stood there, still in work clothes, looking tired in a way that made him seem almost human. "Dinner in an hour. Hope you like Italian. I don't expect you to feed me. Margaret cooks regardless. You might as well eat." He paused. "Unless you're uncomfortable eating with me." Emily considered. She should be uncomfortable, should maintain distance, treat this as a temporary business arrangement. But something in his expression, a guardedness like he expected rejection, made her answer differently. "Italian sounds good." Something softened in his dark eyes. "Good. I'll see you at 6. He left, and Emily released a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. This was her life now, at least for the next 2 weeks. Living in a penthouse with Manhattan's most dangerous man. Eating dinners prepared by his house manager. Sleeping in silk sheets while her old life waited in cardboard boxes. Emily looked out at Central Park, the trees swaying in the evening wind. She'd crossed the threshold. There was no going back now. The only question was how much this safety would cost her in the end. 10 days. Emily had been living in Adrian Blackwood's penthouse for 10 days, and the surreal had become routine. She woke to silence and sunlight instead of sirens and shouting. She studied at the dining table with coffee that actually tasted good. She worked her shifts at the diner while 2 of Adrian's men, Victor and a quieter man named James, waited outside in a black sedan, driving her home through streets that no longer felt threatening. It should have felt like a cage. Instead, it felt like breathing for the first time in years. But the comfort came with complications. Adrian himself was the biggest complication. They'd fallen into an unexpected pattern. He left early most mornings, business he never detailed and she never asked about. He returned late afternoons, usually bringing takeout from restaurants Emily had only read about in magazines. They ate dinner together, conversations that started awkward and became increasingly natural. He asked about her classes. She asked about his day, carefully skirting around anything too specific. He was nothing like she'd expected. Yes, there was danger in him. She saw it in the way his men deferred to him, in the phone calls he took in rapid Italian or Russian, in the careful control he maintained over every word and gesture. But there was also unexpected humor, sharp intelligence, and a perceptiveness that frequently caught her off guard. "You're doing it again," Adrian said. Emily blinked, pulled from her thoughts. They were in the living room on a Friday evening, rain pattering against the windows. Adrian sat in an armchair with a book, actual literature, not just business reports, while Emily was supposedly studying on the couch. Her laptop had gone to screen sleep minutes ago. Doing what? Staring into space? That's the 3rd time in an hour. He set his book down, dark eyes assessing. "What's on your mind?" "You," Emily thought but didn't say. Instead, "My midterm is Monday. I should be more focused." "You've been studying for 6 hours. Your brain needs rest." Adrian stood, moving to the bar cart in the corner. "Wine? I don't drink much. 1 glass won't kill you, might help you relax." He poured 2 glasses of red wine that probably cost more than her former monthly rent. "Come here." It was the way he said it, not quite a command but close, that made Emily's pulse quicken. She'd noticed this about Adrian. He spoke with the assumption of obedience, and people obeyed, including, increasingly, her. She joined him by the windows. He handed her a glass, their fingers brushing briefly. The contact sent an unexpected jolt through her system. "2 surviving midterms," Adrian said, touching his glass to hers. "2 surviving in general." They drank. The wine was smooth, complex, nothing like the cheap bottles she'd occasionally shared with roommates in better times. "You miss it," Adrian observed. "Your old life." Emily considered lying, then decided against it. "Parts of it, the independence. Making my own choices, even if they were bad ones." "You make choices here." "Do I? You paid my rent without asking. You assign my security detail. You decide when I need to rest." She turned to face him, meeting those dark eyes. "Don't get me wrong. I'm grateful. But this isn't independence, it's a very comfortable cage." Something flickered across Adrian's face. Surprise, maybe. People probably didn't call him out often. "You could leave any time," he said quietly. "The security detail would remain, but you're not a prisoner, Emily. Aren't I? You said it yourself. I'm a target because of you. If I leave, I'm vulnerable. If I stay, I'm dependent. Those aren't really choices." Adrian set down his wine glass with deliberate care. You want honesty? Fine. Yes, you're safer here. Yes, there are men in this city who would hurt you to get to me. But you were in danger long before you met me. Working yourself to death, walking through one of the most violent neighborhoods in the city, one bad shift away from homelessness. I didn't create your vulnerability, Emily. I just made you aware of it. The words stung because they were true. Emily looked away out at the city lights blurring through rain-streaked windows. I hate that you're right, she admitted. I usually am. It's insufferable. There was a hint of dark humor in his voice. Emily surprised herself by laughing. You're also arrogant. Confidence, not arrogance, there's a difference. Is there? Confidence is knowing your capabilities. Arrogance is overestimating them. Adrian moved closer, close enough that she could smell his cologne. Subtle, expensive, intoxicating. I'm very clear about what I'm capable of. The air between them felt charged. Emily's heart rate kicked up for reasons that had nothing to do with fear. This was dangerous territory. Not the physical danger she'd worried about, but something potentially more devastating. She was attracted to him. God help her. She was attracted to Adrian Blackwood. It had been building for days. In the way he listened when she talked about her classes. Genuinely interested. In his rare smiles that transformed his severe features. In moments like these, when his carefully maintained control slipped enough to reveal the man beneath the reputation. I should study, Emily said, her voice not as steady as she wanted. Adrian's eyes held hers for a long moment. Yes, you should, but neither of them moved. The moment stretched, tension coiling tighter. Emily saw something shift in Adrian's expression. A decision being made, a line being considered. He lifted one hand slowly, giving her time to retreat. When she didn't, his fingers brushed her cheek, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. The touch was gentle, careful, nothing like the violence she knew he was capable of. This is a bad idea, Emily whispered. Terrible idea, Adrian agreed. His thumb traced her jawline. You should go to your room. You should stop touching me. I should do a lot of things. His hand moved to cup the back of her neck, fingers tangling in her hair. Emily's breath caught. Every rational thought screamed at her to step back, to maintain boundaries, to remember who and what he was. Instead, she leaned in. Adrian met her halfway, his lips capturing hers in a kiss that started gentle and turned hungry in seconds. Emily's hands found his chest, feeling solid muscle beneath expensive fabric. His other arm wrapped around her waist, pulling her closer, and she gasped against his mouth. The kiss deepened. Adrian tasted like wine and danger, and something Emily couldn't name but desperately wanted. His control was slipping. She felt it in the way his grip tightened, the way his breathing roughened. One hand slid into her hair, angling her head for better access. The other pressed against the small of her back, holding her against him. Emily had been kissed before, but never like this. Never with this intensity, this barely leashed power, this sense that the man kissing her was capable of destroying everything around them but was choosing, in this moment, to be careful with her. It was intoxicating, terrifying, perfect. Adrian pulled back first, his breathing harsh. His eyes were darker than usual, pupils dilated. His hands remained on her, one in her hair, one at her waist, as if he couldn't quite make himself let go. Emily, her name was rough in his mouth. That was a mistake, he finished. But he didn't release her. Was it? Yes. Adrian's jaw tightened. You're here because I'm protecting you. This, he gestured between them, complicates everything. Emily's mind was still spinning, her lips tingling, her body wanting more even as her brain tried to reassert control. So we pretend it didn't happen? We acknowledge it was a moment of weakness and don't repeat it. The words were logical, sensible, everything Emily should want to hear. So why did they feel like rejection? She stepped back, forcing his hands to drop. Right. Of course. Moment of weakness. She grabbed her laptop from the couch. I should study. Midterm. Monday. Important. She was babbling. She never babbled. Emily. It's fine, really. Forgotten already. She retreated toward her room, needing distance, needing to think without his presence scrambling her thoughts. Good night, Adrian. She made it to her room and closed the door before the trembling started. Emily pressed her back against the wood, laptop clutched to her chest, trying to process what had just happened. She'd kissed Adrian Blackwood, Manhattan's most dangerous crime boss, the man protecting her from threats he'd partially created. The man who could destroy her life with a phone call, and it had been the best kiss of her entire life. Idiot, she whispered to herself. You absolute idiot. The weekend passed in careful avoidance. Adrian was gone most of Saturday, another business matter that kept him out until late evening. Emily threw herself into midterm preparation, grateful for the distraction. They ate dinner in near silence, the easy rapport from previous evenings replaced by awkward formality. Sunday morning, Emily woke early and found Adrian in the kitchen, coffee already made. He was dressed for a run in athletic clothes that showcased exactly how he maintained his intimidating physique. Morning, he said, his tone carefully neutral. Morning. Emily poured coffee, acutely aware of the space between them. I'm working a shift this afternoon. Victor will drive you. I know. Silence stretched. Emily hated it. Hated how one kiss had shattered the comfortable dynamic they'd built. She was about to retreat to her room when Adrian spoke. I'm going to Philadelphia Tuesday. Business meeting. I'll be gone overnight. Emily turned. Okay. Margaret will be here. And the security team. Adrian's expression was unreadable. You'll be safe. I know. She hesitated. Adrian, about Friday. Was a mistake. We agreed. Did we? Because you decided it was, or because it actually was? The words came out sharper than intended. Adrian's jaw tightened. Does it matter? It matters to me. He moved closer, that predatory grace that reminded her exactly how dangerous he was. You want honesty, Emily? Fine. It was a mistake because you deserve better than this. Better than me. You deserve someone who can take you to dinner without worrying about snipers. Someone who doesn't have enemies who'd slit your throat to make a point. Someone who doesn't have blood on his hands. He stopped inches from her. I can protect you. I can provide for you. But I can't be what you need. And pretending otherwise will only hurt you more. Emily's chest tightened. You don't get to decide what I need. No, but I get to decide what I'm willing to risk. And risking you, that's not acceptable. Before she could respond, his phone rang. Adrian checked it, his expression hardening. I need to take this. He walked away, already speaking in clipped Russian. Emily stood alone in the kitchen, coffee growing cold in her hands, trying to figure out how she'd developed feelings for someone so determined to push her away. The shift at the Riverside Diner was a welcome return to normalcy. Frank greeted her with his usual gruffness, Marcus with a warm hug. Customers were demanding, tips were mediocre, and her feet hurt in the old familiar way. But it felt real in a way the penthouse didn't. During her break, she sat in the back alley, the same alley where she'd taken countless breaks over 18 months, and called her best friend from college Sarah. So let me get this straight, Sarah said after Emily had summarized the past 2 weeks. You're living with a Mafia boss who kissed you and then told you it was a mistake? That's the condensed version, yeah. Emily Carter, your life has become a romance novel. It's not romantic, it's complicated. Complicated is forgetting your anniversary. This is straight up dangerous. Sarah's voice turned serious. Are you safe? Really safe? Emily thought about it. About Victor's constant presence. About the security system in the penthouse. About the way Adrian's men treated her with careful respect. Yeah, I am. And you have feelings for him. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. I've known you for 5 years, Em. I can hear it in your voice. Sarah sighed. Just be careful, okay? Men like that, they live in a different world. And that world has consequences. After the call, Emily returned to her shift, Sarah's words echoing in her mind. The dinner rush was brutal. Every table full, kitchen backed up, customers impatient. She moved through it mechanically, her thoughts miles away in a Central Park penthouse. Around 8, the diner door opened. Emily glanced up reflexively and froze. The man who entered was in his 40s, expensive suit, cold eyes that swept the room with calculating precision. He was followed by 2 others, muscle clearly built like brick walls. They chose a booth with a clear view of the entire restaurant. Something about them set off every alarm bell Emily had developed working in Manhattan. This wasn't normal. This felt wrong. The man's eyes found her, and his lips curved into a smile that held no warmth. Good evening, he said when she approached, his accent vaguely Eastern European. You're Emily, yes? Her blood turned to ice. Can I get you something to drink? Information, perhaps. He leaned back, still smiling that cold smile. You've been staying with Adrian Blackwood. How? Cozy. Emily's hand trembled slightly on her order pad. I don't know what you're talking about, don't you? Interesting. He brings you to his home, assigns you security, pays your debts. The man's eyes were dead, shark-like. Adrian doesn't do charity. So I wonder, what makes you special? One of the muscle heads shifted and Emily caught a glimpse of a gun holster beneath his jacket. I'm just a waitress, Emily said, fighting to keep her voice steady. If you want food, I can take your order. Otherwise, I have other tables. Of course. Professionalism. I appreciate that. The man pulled out a business card, sliding it across the table. My name is Dmitry Volkov. When you grow tired of Adrian's protection, and you will, call me. I'm always interested in acquiring valuable assets. The threat was clear. Emily didn't touch the card. I'll send someone else to take your order. She walked away on shaking legs, heading straight for the kitchen. Frank was at the grill, cursing at a burned order. Frank, I need you to call Victor now. The number's on my emergency contact list in your office. Frank looked up, saw her face, and didn't ask questions. He moved. Emily stayed in the kitchen, her heart pounding. Through the service window, she could see Dmitry Volkov still sitting in the booth, speaking quietly to his companions. They weren't eating. They were watching. Victor appeared 10 minutes later, James with him. They spoke briefly to Dmitry, their body language professional but threatening. Dmitry smiled, nodded, and left with his men. But the message had been delivered. Emily was a target. And not just theoretically anymore. Victor drove her back to the penthouse, James following in a second car. Neither man spoke about what had happened, but their tension was palpable. They were inside the building, riding the private elevator, when Victor finally broke his silence. Mr. Blackwood needs to know about this. He's in Philadelphia, Emily said, her voice hollow. Then I'm calling him now. Adrian answered on the second ring. Victor stepped away, speaking in low, urgent tones. Emily leaned against the elevator wall, exhaustion and delayed fear crashing over her. This was real. The danger wasn't theoretical or distant. Dmitry Volkov had found her, threatened her, made it clear she was a piece in whatever game these men played. The elevator opened into the penthouse. Margaret was there, concern etched on her face. Emily, dear, are you all right? I'm fine. Just tired. Victor told me what happened. Mr. Blackwood is on his way back. He doesn't need to. He's already in the car. Margaret guided Emily toward the living room. Sit down. I'll make tea. Emily sat, numbness spreading through her limbs. She thought about Dmitry Volkov's cold eyes, his casual threat, the guns his men carried. She thought about Adrian's warning, that people would hurt her to get to him. She'd been naive to think that was abstract, to think she could exist in Adrian's orbit without consequences. The penthouse door slammed open 90 minutes later. Adrian strode in, still in his business suit, hair disheveled from the wind, eyes burning with barely contained fury. Where is she? He demanded. Living room, Margaret said softly. Adrian appeared in the doorway, and Emily saw something in his face she'd never seen before. Fear, raw, undisguised fear that transformed into relief when he saw her sitting on the couch, unharmed. He crossed the space in seconds, pulling her to her feet and into his arms. Emily stiffened in surprise, then melted against him, her careful control finally breaking. Tears she'd been holding back spilled over. I'm sorry, Adrian said into her hair, his voice rough. I'm so goddamn sorry. This is my fault, all of it. You didn't do anything. I brought you into this world. I made you visible. He pulled back, hands cupping her face, thumbs brushing away tears. Dmitry Volkov is a dead man. I promise you that. Adrian, no. He threatened you. In public. That's not acceptable. Adrian's expression was cold fury. He crossed a line, and he'll pay for it. Emily saw it then. The man beneath the careful control. The violence he was capable of, the ruthlessness that had built his reputation. It should have terrified her. Instead, she felt safer than she had all evening. I don't want you to kill someone because of me, Emily said. It's not because of you. It's because he broke the rules. Adrian's hands dropped from her face and he stepped back, that control slamming back into place. But you're right. This can't continue. Tomorrow, we're making changes. What kind of changes? Adrian's jaw set. The kind that keep you alive, even if you hate me for them. He turned and walked away, pulling out his phone, barking orders in Russian to someone on the other end. Emily stood alone in the living room, still feeling the ghost of his hands on her face, still seeing the fear in his eyes when he'd first seen her. Sarah was right. This world had consequences. Emily was only beginning to understand how steep the price might be. Emily woke to voices, angry voices cutting through the pre-dawn silence of the penthouse. She checked her phone. 5:47 a.m. She'd barely slept, her mind replaying Dmitry Volkov's cold smile, his casual threat, the reality of the danger she'd walked into. The voices grew louder. Adrian's definitely, that deep rasp edged with fury, and another man's, equally angry, speaking rapid Italian. Emily pulled on a robe and crept toward the living room. She stopped in the hallway, hidden from view but able to hear clearly. Reckless, Adrian, you brought her into your home, made her a target, and now Volkov is circling like a shark. The other voice belonged to Lorenzo, one of Adrian's most trusted men. She needs to go. Tonight. She goes nowhere. Adrian's tone was ice. Then you're choosing her over the organization? Over everything we've built? I'm choosing to handle my business my way. That's not new, Lorenzo. Your business doesn't usually include innocent civilians. She's a liability. She's under my protection. End of discussion. A pause. Then Lorenzo's voice, quieter but no less intense. You care about her. That's the problem. Caring makes you weak, and weakness in our world gets people killed. Emily's breath caught. She pressed against the wall, heart pounding. Get out, Adrian said, his voice deadly calm. And Lorenzo? If I hear you've discussed Emily with anyone, you'll regret it. Footsteps. The front door opened and closed with controlled force. Silence settled over the penthouse like a heavy blanket. Emily waited a moment before stepping into the living room. Adrian stood by the windows, still in yesterday's suit, looking out at the city as dawn began to break over Manhattan. He didn't turn when she entered. You heard, he said. Most of it. Emily moved closer. Lorenzo's right, isn't he? I'm a liability. Lorenzo's cautious, sometimes overly so. That's not an answer. Adrian finally turned. He looked exhausted. Shadows under his eyes, tension in his shoulders, the weight of his world visible in ways she'd never seen before. Yes, in his view, you're a complication. In mine, you're someone who deserves protection, even if protecting me puts you at risk. I've been at risk my entire adult life. This changes nothing. Emily crossed her arms. Except it does. I heard what he said. You're choosing me over your organization. That's not sustainable, Adrian. Eventually, you'll have to choose. I already have. The words hung between them. Emily felt her chest tighten, emotions warring inside her, gratitude, fear, and that dangerous attraction she'd been trying to suppress. You can't, she whispered. I'm not worth that. Adrian closed the distance between them in 3 strides. Don't. His hands gripped her shoulders. Don't diminish yourself. You're worth more than you know. I'm a waitress who collapsed from exhaustion. I'm nothing special. You're wrong. His eyes burned into hers. You survived 2 years of hell on your own. You work yourself to the bone while finishing your degree. You face every obstacle with determination instead of giving up. You walked into my world and didn't break. That's not nothing, Emily. That's everything. Her throat tightened. Adrian. His phone rang, shattering the moment. He released her, checking the screen, and his expression hardened. I need to take this. He walked away, speaking in clipped Russian. Emily stood alone, his words echoing in her mind. You're everything. No one had ever said anything like that to her. Not her parents, who'd cut her off when she'd chosen her own path over theirs. Not her ex-boyfriend, who'd left when things got hard. No one, until Adrian Blackwood. The day crawled by with unbearable tension. Adrian was gone by 7, dealing with what Margaret vaguely referred to as the Volkov situation. Emily tried to study, but concentration was impossible. She paced the penthouse, feeling like a prisoner despite the luxury. Around noon, Margaret found her staring out at Central Park. Mr. Blackwood asked me to give you this. Margaret handed her an envelope. Inside was a credit card. Black, heavy, expensive, and a note in Adrian's precise handwriting. Buy whatever you need. The pin is your birthday. Emily stared at it. A credit card. Access to his accounts. The level of trust implicit in that gesture made her hands shake. I can't accept this, she told Margaret. He anticipated you'd say that. Margaret smiled gently. He said to tell you it's practical, not charity. You need clothes appropriate for where you're staying. Consider it a uniform. A uniform for what? For surviving in his world. The words chilled Emily. Was that what she was doing? Surviving? Or was she becoming something else entirely? Someone who belonged in penthouses and black cars? Someone who accepted protection from dangerous men? Someone who was falling for a person she should fear? Her phone rang. Sarah. Hey, Emily answered, grateful for the distraction. Are you watching the news? Sarah's voice was tight. No, why? Turn on CNN now. Emily grabbed the TV remote, switching to the news. The headline made her blood freeze. Gang war escalates. 3 dead in Midtown shooting. The reporter stood outside a restaurant Emily recognized, one of the high-end Italian places in Midtown. Police tape cordoned off the area. Body bags were being loaded into ambulances. Sources indicate the shooting is related to ongoing tensions between the Blackwood organization and Dmitry Volkov's operations. Police are investigating. Emily muted the TV, her hands trembling. Em, you there? Sarah's voice was small in her ear. I'm here. That's his world. That's what you're living in. Sarah paused. I love you, but you need to get out. Before you end up on the news, too. After the call ended, Emily sat in silence, staring at the muted television. 3 people dead. Because of the world Adrian lived in. The world she was now part of, whether she wanted to be or not. The front door opened around 6. Adrian entered, and Emily's stomach dropped. There was blood on his shirt cuff, just a small spot but unmistakable. Are you hurt? She asked immediately. Adrian glanced down, seeming to notice the blood for the first time. It's not mine. Whose is it? Does it matter? Emily stood. Yes, it matters. I saw the news, Adrian. 3 people are dead. And you? She gestured at the blood. You were there. I was handling business. Killing people is handling business? Adrian's expression went cold. I didn't kill anyone today. But yes, sometimes that's part of my business. You knew what I was when you agreed to stay here. Knowing and seeing are different things. Emily's voice rose. There's blood on your shirt, Adrian. 3 people are dead. And somewhere, someone is mourning them. Doesn't that mean anything to you? Of course it does. His jaw tightened. But in my world, showing weakness gets you killed. Those 3 people worked for Volkov. They came to my restaurant to send a message. My men defended the territory. That's how this works. That's insane. That's reality. Adrian moved closer. You want to judge me? Fine. But don't pretend you didn't know who I was. Don't pretend you thought my money came from legitimate business. You knew, Emily. You just chose not to think about it. The words hit like a slap. Because he was right. She'd accepted his protection, his home, his help, all while conveniently ignoring where it came from. You're right, Emily said quietly. I've been naive, willfully blind, but I can't do that anymore, not after today. What are you saying? I'm saying I need to leave. This was a mistake, all of it. She turned toward her room. I'll pack tonight. Tomorrow, I'll go back to my apartment. Adrian grabbed her arm, spinning her back. You're not going anywhere. You can't keep me here. Volkov threatened you. He knows where you live, where you work. You think you'll be safe in that apartment with its broken lock and no security? His grip tightened. You leave, you die. It's that simple. Then what am I supposed to do? Stay here forever? Watch the body count rise while pretending I'm not complicit? You want the truth? Adrian's eyes blazed. Yes, stay here, be safe. Let me deal with Volkov. When it's over, when you're no longer a target, then you can leave. Then you can judge me from a distance. But right now, you stay. Emily jerked her arm free. And if I refuse, I'll lock you in your room if I have to. The threat hung between them. Emily saw the determination in his face. He meant it. He would literally imprison her before letting her leave. You're no different than them, she whispered. Volkov, the other criminals. You all think you can control people, force your will on them. Pain flashed across Adrian's features. Maybe, but I'm the one keeping you alive. He walked away, disappearing into his office and closing the door with deliberate care. Emily stood alone in the living room, shaking with anger and fear and frustration. She was trapped, not by locks or chains, but by the reality Adrian had forced her to see. Leaving meant death. Staying meant complicity. There was no good choice. Only survival. Emily didn't leave her room for the rest of the evening. Margaret brought dinner on a tray, untouched. Around midnight, she heard Adrian's footsteps in the hallway, pausing outside her door. She held her breath, waiting. He didn't knock. After a long moment, the footsteps retreated. Emily lay in the expensive bed staring at the ceiling, wondering how her life had become this impossible equation. She thought about Dmitry Volkov's cold eyes, about the blood on Adrian's cuff, about Lorenzo's words. Caring makes you weak. Was that what was happening? Was Adrian's care for her making him vulnerable? Was she destroying him while he tried to save her? Her phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. Still interested in protection? My offer stands. DV Dmitry Volkov. He'd gotten her number. The threat was clear. He could reach her anytime, anywhere. Emily deleted the text with shaking hands and turned off her phone. She was trapped in a war she didn't understand, protected by a man whose world horrified her, falling for someone she knew could destroy her completely. Tomorrow, something would have to change. She just had no idea what. The explosion shattered the pre-dawn silence. Emily jerked awake, her heart hammering as the penthouse windows rattled. Car alarms shrieked from the street below. She stumbled out of bed, disoriented, and her door burst open. Adrian stood there, fully dressed despite the early hour, gun in hand. "Get dressed now. We're leaving." "What's happening?" "Car bomb. Parking garage. 3 floors down." His voice was clipped, controlled. "Volkov's making his move. You have 2 minutes." Emily's hands shook as she pulled on jeans and a sweater. Her mind couldn't process. A bomb. Someone had planted a bomb in the building. This was real. This was happening. Adrian appeared with a duffel bag. Essentials only. Phone, documents, nothing else. She grabbed her phone and wallet, her student ID, the few things that mattered. Adrian took her hand, his grip iron tight, and pulled her toward the private elevator. Victor and James were already there, both armed, faces grim. Margaret stood with a small suitcase, calm despite the chaos. "Safe house in Brooklyn," Adrian said. "Victor, you drive Margaret. James, you're with me and Emily." The elevator descended in tense silence. Emily's ears still rang from the explosion. She thought about the people who lived in the building. Had anyone been hurt? Killed? The garage, she started, was empty, timed for maximum fear, minimum casualties. Adrian's jaw was set. Volkov sending a message. They exited into the lobby. Police sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. The doorman looked terrified, speaking rapidly into his phone. Adrian guided Emily through a service exit, into an alley where 2 cars waited. The drive to Brooklyn was silent. Emily watched Manhattan recede through the rear window. The city where she'd struggled to survive, now the city where someone wanted her dead. James drove with precision, constantly checking mirrors, while Adrian sat rigid beside her, one hand on his gun. The safe house was in Williamsburg, an industrial building converted into lofts, unremarkable from the outside. Inside it was sparse but functional. Reinforced doors, security cameras, supplies for an extended stay. "You'll be safe here," Adrian said, finally holstering his weapon. "The location is known to only 5 people, all trusted." Emily sank onto a couch, adrenaline crash hitting her hard. "How long?" "Until I handle Volkov." "Handle?" She looked up at him. "You mean kill?" Adrian's expression didn't change. "Yes." The simple honesty was somehow worse than evasion would have been. Emily wrapped her arms around herself. "And then what? Another enemy takes his place? Another bomb? Another? Then I make sure the next person thinks twice before coming after what's mine." The possessiveness in his tone made her chest tighten. "I'm not yours, Adrian." "Aren't you?" He moved closer, crouching in front of her. "You've been in my home for weeks. You eat at my table, sleep in my bed." He caught himself. "In my guest room. You've become part of my life in ways I didn't plan. In ways I can't undo." Emily met his dark eyes. "You could send me away. Put me on a plane to another city. Give me a new identity. End this." "I could." His hand came up, cupping her face with unexpected gentleness. "But I won't. Because somewhere between catching you when you fell and now, I stopped being able to imagine my world without you in it." Her breath caught. "Adrian, I know it's selfish. I know I'm dragging you deeper into darkness. But I can't let you go, Emily. I've tried. God knows I've tried." His thumb brushed her cheek. "So yes, I'll handle Volkov, and anyone else who threatens you. Because losing you isn't an option I'm willing to consider." Before Emily could respond, his phone rang. He stood, that vulnerable moment slamming shut as he answered. "What?" His expression went from controlled to furious in seconds. "When? How many?" "I'm on my way." He ended the call, already moving toward the door. "There's been an attack on one of my warehouses. 4 of my men are dead." Emily stood. "You're leaving?" "I have to. Victor and James will stay with you. Don't open the door for anyone else." He paused at the threshold, looking back. "When this is over, we need to talk. Really talk. About what this is between us. About what happens next." Then he was gone, and Emily was left with the echo of his words and the terrifying realization that she didn't want him to let her go either. The hours crawled by. Emily tried to study, to focus on something normal, but her mind kept drifting to Adrian. Wherever he was, whatever he was doing, Margaret made lunch, her calm presence a strange comfort. Victor and James took turns patrolling, their vigilance a constant reminder of the danger. Around 3 p.m., Emily's phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, remembering Volkov's text. But something made her pick up. Emily Carter? A woman's voice. Professional. Unfamiliar. Who is this? My name is Detective Sarah Chen, NYPD Organized Crime Unit. I need to speak with you about Adrian Blackwood. Emily's blood went cold. I'm not. You've been living in his penthouse for 3 weeks. You were seen leaving with him after the bombing this morning. You're connected to him, Ms. Carter, whether you want to be or not. A pause. And you're in danger. Real danger. Let me help you. I can't talk to you. Can't or won't. There's a difference. Detective Chen's voice softened. I know you're not part of his world. I've read your background, good student, hard worker, no criminal record. You're a civilian caught in a war. Let me get you out. Emily's hand tightened on the phone. How did you get this number? I'm a detective, it's my job. Papers rustled in the background. Here's what I know. Dmitry Volkov has put a price on your head. $50,000. Every criminal in this city knows your face. Adrian Blackwood can't protect you forever. He's too busy trying to survive himself. But I can offer you witness protection. A new life. Far from here. Safe. In exchange for what? Testifying against Adrian? In exchange for getting out alive. Detective Chen sighed. Look, I don't expect you to trust me. But think about this. How many more bombs? How many more bodies? This war between Blackwood and Volkov will escalate until one of them is dead. Maybe both. And where does that leave you? Emily closed her eyes. The detective was right. Adrian had said the same thing. This would end in blood. It always did. I need time, Emily said. Time is a luxury you don't have. Volkov's people are everywhere. They're waiting for Blackwood to slip, to leave you vulnerable for just a moment. A pause. I'm sending you a number. Burner phone. When you're ready to leave, call it. I'll have a team extract you within the hour. The call ended. A text arrived seconds later. Just a phone number, nothing else. Emily stared at it, her finger hovering over the delete button. This was her way out. Her escape from Adrian's world. From the violence and danger and impossible choices. So why couldn't she press delete? Adrian returned after midnight, exhausted and streaked with someone else's blood. Emily was still awake, curled on the couch with cold coffee and an unread textbook. She looked up when he entered, and her heart clenched at the weariness in his face. Are you hurt? She asked. No. He moved to the kitchen, poured whiskey with a shaking hand. 4 of my men are dead. Volkov hit 3 locations simultaneously. It's a coordinated assault. Emily set down her book. Can you win? Eventually. But the cost. He drank deeply. There's always a cost. She should tell him about Detective Chen's call, should tell him about the offer, the way out. But looking at him, this dangerous man who'd caught her when she fell, who'd protected her at great personal risk, who'd admitted he couldn't let her go, she couldn't find the words. Adrian? Why me? The question came out quieter than intended. You could have helped me and walked away, paid my rent, assigned security, kept distance. Why did you let me into your life? He set down the glass, his dark eyes finding hers. You want the truth? Always. Because when you looked at me, you didn't see a monster. He moved closer, sitting beside her on the couch. Everyone in my world sees what I am, what I've done, what I'm capable of. They fear me or use me or try to destroy me. But you saw past all of it. You argued with me, challenged me, treated me like a person, not a threat. His hand found hers, fingers intertwining. That night at the diner, watching you work yourself to exhaustion, I saw something I'd forgotten existed. Genuine determination. Pure survival instinct without the cruelty my world breeds. And when you collapsed, when I caught you, he paused. I knew I was in trouble. Because I wanted to keep you safe in ways that had nothing to do with obligation. Emily's throat tightened. I'm falling for you. Despite everything I know I shouldn't. Despite your world, your violence, your impossibility. I'm falling. I know. His other hand came up, cupping her face. I've been falling since you tried to go back to work after collapsing. Since you called my penthouse a comfortable cage. Since you looked at the blood on my shirt and cared whose it was. His forehead touched hers. I'm in love with you, Emily. And it's the most dangerous thing I've ever done. The confession hung between them. Raw, honest, terrifying. Emily's eyes burned with tears she'd been holding back for days. This can't work. I know. His lips brushed hers, soft and devastating. But I'm done pretending I don't want to try. The kiss deepened, weeks of tension and denial finally breaking. Emily's hands fisted in his shirt, the one stained with blood and violence in his impossible world. She kissed him back with equal desperation, knowing this was a mistake, knowing they were crossing a line that couldn't be uncrossed. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Adrian's eyes held a fierce determination. "I'm ending this," he said. "Tomorrow night I'm meeting with Volkov. One way or another, this war ends." Emily's blood chilled. "That's suicide. He'll kill you. Maybe. But I'm done letting you live in fear. I'm done sacrificing my people for a war that's really about you." His grip tightened on her face. "I need you to promise me something." "What?" "If I don't come back, if Volkov wins, you take the money I've left in your name and disappear. Victor has instructions. He'll get you somewhere safe, somewhere you can start over." "Adrian, no. Promise me, Emily." Tears spilled over. "I promise. But you're coming back. You have to." He kissed her again, softer this time. "I'll try. For you, I'll try." The next evening arrived too fast. Adrian dressed in his usual dark suit, loading weapons with practiced efficiency. Emily watched from the doorway, memorizing every detail. The way his hands moved, the set of his shoulders, the quiet intensity that defined him. "I could call Detective Chen," she said suddenly. "Tell her everything. Let the police handle Volkov." Adrian looked up, surprise flickering across his face. "Detective Chen contacted you?" "Yesterday. Offered witness protection in exchange for testimony." Emily moved closer. "I didn't tell you because I wasn't sure what I wanted. But now, no." Adrian's voice was firm. "The police can't protect you from Volkov's reach, and I won't let you destroy your life by becoming a witness. You'd spend years looking over your shoulder, as opposed to spending them wondering if you're alive." His expression softened. He crossed to her, pulling her into his arms. "I love you. That means I fight for you. It means I end threats before they touch you. It means I come back." Emily buried her face in his chest, breathing in his scent, trying to memorize this moment. "Promise me you'll be careful. Promise me you won't do anything reckless. I promise I'll do everything possible to come home to you." It wasn't the promise she wanted, but it was the only one he could give. Victor appeared in the doorway. "Boss, it's time." Adrian kissed Emily one last time. Deep, desperate, full of everything they hadn't said. Then he was gone, and she was left standing in the safe house waiting for news that would determine her entire future. 8 hours later, Emily couldn't sit still. She paced the loft while Margaret tried to distract her with food she couldn't eat. James stood by the window, tense and vigilant. They'd heard nothing. No calls, no updates. Just silence that felt increasingly ominous. At 2:47 a.m., the door opened. Emily's heart stopped. She turned, and there was Adrian, alive, blood on his face, limping slightly but alive. "It's over," he said. "Volkov's dead. His organization is dismantled. You're safe." Emily ran to him, not caring about the blood or the exhaustion or anything except that he'd come back. Adrian caught her, holding tight, and she felt his chest heave with relief. "I thought I'd lost you," she whispered against his neck. "Not a chance. I made a promise." He pulled back, looking down at her with those dark eyes that had once terrified her. "Now we talk about what happens next. What do you want to happen?" "Everything." His voice was rough with emotion. "I want you to finish your degree. I want to take you to dinner without bodyguards. I want mornings where you're the first thing I see. I want—" He paused. "I want a life with you, if you'll risk it." Emily knew what accepting meant. A life in Adrian's world, with its dangers and complications, but also a life with the man who'd caught her when she fell, who'd protected her at impossible cost, who'd fought his way back to her. "Yes," she said simply. "I'll risk it." 6 months later, Emily stood in a small cafe in Boston, a quiet place Adrian had purchased under a shell company. She worked the counter, finishing her degree online, while Adrian transitioned his legitimate businesses there. It wasn't perfect. His past followed them, but they were building something new. Adrian entered as a customer just like that first morning after she'd stayed in his penthouse. He ordered coffee, his eyes holding hers with that intensity she'd learned to crave. "Your order's ready," Emily said with a smile. "So am I," Adrian replied. "Ready for whatever comes next, as long as it's with you." She handed him the coffee, their fingers brushing. a small touch that meant everything. Outside, Boston bustled with life. Inside, two people who'd found each other in impossible circumstances chose love despite the cost. Because some risks were worth taking, and some people were worth falling for, even when they were falling meant stepping into darkness. Together, they'd find the light.